Been invited to talk to you all about social media tonight, which is a fabulous opportunity for what looks like a brilliant network. I can share this desktop as well. So here we are. So I just want to say thank you to the core team first for inviting me tonight and to talk about something that I'm actually really passionate about and that I really love in terms of professional development and as a way to improve care. So my name is Helen and I'm a rotational band 5 in Wolverhampton in England. My interest in social media started when I was a student. So I'm just getting a bit of an echo. So I started when I was a student at Coventry University. We'd been told by one of our lecturers, who was a physio and a social media enthusiast, Gerard Green. He would tell us about the benefits of using social media, and we'd kind of follow a few feeds. But it wasn't until I was in practice one day on a student placement, a women's health post stuck in my mind about using the NAC to help with one of these patients. This was a respiratory placement and the girl was struggling with stress incontinence, and it made me realise actually how much social media can help the patient just through the learning and development it can offer the people using it. From there we set up the Coventry University Physio Feed, which had got recognised internationally, which completely blew us away, and the same for the blog. I was very conscious that each of my student colleagues had something to offer in terms of experience and in terms of reflection and in terms of knowledge that could help other people develop, even if it was just other students on the same course. From that, I got invited along to the regional network meeting for the West Midlands Physiotherapy Network and started running their Twitter feed as well for them. And that opened up a whole load of doors and eventually led me to where I am now, chairing the network. In addition to that, I joined a brilliant team, We HPs, for allied health professionals, which is a much bigger network than I've done before. That picture there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screens is myself with Naomi McVeigh and Jo Fillingham, both of who are really knowledgeable about social media and really passionate about using it to improve care. So it's been a brilliant experience in the meantime, and we've grown as a team, we've grown as a network, working to support allied health professions in practice across all different areas in the UK and beyond if they're accessing our network too. So that was me. I'd just like to share a video, our launch video from last year from We HPs, as it just gives a bit of a grounding for social media and a few of the benefits and a little bit of the history as well. You find it's quite Twitter focused because that's our main network that we use, but it's relevant to all the networks that I'll be talking about later on. Brilliant. So that was our launch video, and since then we've grown in size, we've grown in numbers, and we've actually achieved a lot along the way. Thinking now about social media more broadly though, lots of people are actually a bit unfamiliar with what it means. They might be able to give examples, but actually what it is at the heart of it is anything that's online where two or more people can come together and share data. That data can be absolutely anything, from pictures of your cat to the latest oncology research articles to videos of babies dancing. So it really does vary with what you get out of social media and what you put on social media as well as to what the benefits can be for you and for your service. Some of you are probably wondering actually what's the benefit of it over, say, a chat in the office with a colleague of yours. For me, I would have to say it's the reach and it's the variety of people that you can access with social media. There are so many people that use it that you can really find experts, you can find people that know different things to you, and you can find people with different experiences and different opinions, and it's the collaboration of that that really brings you all together in healthcare and actually helps you develop as a whole. So this it's just an example. This is taken from the Coventry University Physio's blog last year around this time. The yellow countries are countries where we were watched, so that equated to about a third of the world when we had a look at it. And that blew our minds that a small group of physios from Coventry University had that level of reach and that level of impact around the world. And we're able to connect with so many people in different healthcare systems, with different training, seeing different types of patients, and share our experiences and share our passion for physiotherapy as a whole. When we're thinking about social media and that reach, the benefits of that reach, the people that are on social media and the access it gives you are brilliant. There's no social hierarchy. It's not like at work where you've got, say, different pay grades and different managers and non-management and clinical staff. It's not got the same social constructs as daily conversations, so you can start a conversation with almost anyone on Twitter or another network, and they will approach you and respond to you as an equal in that same way because they recognise that actually we're working together for the same thing, and that's brilliant. Likewise, different cultures. With different cultures come different experiences, and those experiences really feed into people's beliefs and their understanding and their ideas, which allows brilliant collaboration and idea sharing and innovation to be able to happen on social media. Similarly, in different countries, we've got different conditions being faced. We've got different access to healthcare. We've got different ability of healthcare systems and different ways that these healthcare systems respond. Sharing this and sharing what's best practice means that practitioners can problem solve together and actually think how to deliver the best service for their patients no matter what context they're in, no matter what resources they've got, and no matter what's on offer. I'm thinking about different scopes as well. Around the world, physiotherapists are allowed to do different things, but at the heart of it, it's about helping patients through movement, through manual techniques, and through lots of other techniques that we all use daily. Those different scopes are a great way of working together and collaborating, and discussing actually what is different about us, what's unique about us, and what can we do, how can we develop as a profession in our own country and as a practitioner in your own right. Likewise, there's not just videos on these social networks. You'll see from the video there were lots of different networks there. Nurses are probably one of the largest networks as a GPs, just because there's so many of them anyway. There are more accessing online resources and social media. You can find nearly every single profession, certainly at least one individual from every profession on social media. That's brilliant because it lets you come together, it lets you think holistically about the patient care and what can be offered to patients, and also about development. People from different professions might see different things in a patient than you do. And when you're able to come together and offer that, the healthcare really works well. Likewise, this can help your own development. Some professions might have much more of a medical understanding. Some professions might have much more of a holistic understanding. Pushing yourself and trying to understand what they get from it is a great way to help their own personal development. Social media is also cutting edge. You've got updates being shared at the moment that they happen. Rather than having to wait for the newest journal to come out, someone can just tweet their latest research, tweet the findings, tweet the research paper, and it's out there. It can be shared, it can be disseminated, and that's really handy, especially when previously people were waiting long times. I've mentioned collaboration before and the power of social media to bring people together and work together on something. I think this really does come back to that one common cause, and that we are helping patients and we're trying to improve care, and people want to work together to do this. It's a really passionate topic for many, and people get really enthusiastic and they love working with people, they love brainstorming with each other on social media, and it's brilliant to see when it's happening. Likewise, social media is friendly. It's a very friendly environment. People are there, they're there to chat, they're there to meet other people, so you're often welcomed in social media. If you've not used it before, it can feel a bit daunting, but often you are welcomed with open arms. People offer you help, people offer you support, people want to get you involved and as engaged as they are in it. So social media's got a whole host of different benefits through different ways. It's brilliant for networking, professional development, it's brilliant for sharing your scope and your personal profile as a way of aiding employability. I've mentioned a few other things already. Some of the key features that actually really push social media forward are how it can be used not just for healthcare practitioners but also by and for the patients, so that they're able to offer, they're able to get some advice, get some education on these topics, and help shape their behaviour in accessing services, no matter which country it's in. For physios, it's a brilliant way to share resources, it's a brilliant way to support one another and debate and discuss and share clinical cases. It's a fantastic way to share what you're doing with your patients. In terms of resources being shared, you quite often see research articles being posted around on different networks. You can also access events that you might not otherwise be able to access. We all know how expensive conferences can be in terms of flight costs, in terms of accommodation, in terms of the actual ticket. With social media, it actually opens these up. It might be a different experience, but you're able to get the key learning points from people there that are sharing them on social media, whether that's through a blog post, through Twitter or through Facebook updates. That means that actually it's much more open than it ever was before. And that means that not only are people that have the money and have the ability to go can access them, but actually everyone. And that again feeds back into collaboration and development, and actually development as a whole, not just development in small pockets of the profession. So thinking a bit about HELLOMYNAMEIS, I was speaking with a colleague of mine, Jo Strong, who is an oncological physio in Wolverhampton, and she was sharing some of the problems that are faced by being part of quite a relatively small specialism. There are fewer of you than there are of other specialisms that are kind of more predominant, say MSK or respiratory, and that can mean it's quite hard to find a network with people that work in the same clinical areas as you. Social media can help that. It overcomes those geographical boundaries that are there, prevent you from talking with other people physically, because you can then talk to them from your sofa at home in your pyjamas if you want to, and you can have those clinical discussions and learn from each other and share resources that you've found. Similarly, if you're looking across the globe, then you're going to be struggling with time zones, and people don't want to be doing these things in the middle of the night. So on social media you can post something and then it's accessible and people can see it when and where they want to, so you overcome that barrier. We've got different healthcare systems too, so thinking about what works in one country, where does a piece of research come from, you can ask someone that's there, you can ask someone that can explain it to you. As well, I'm quite aware that lots of people maybe don't recognise what you do with your patients and what your role is with patients, and that's a brilliant way using social media can promote it. You can promote what you do with your patients, you can promote the techniques you use, you can promote the benefits it has to patients, That doesn't just help physios, it helps other people to signpost that service. If doctors are hearing that and then they realise that it's beneficial to their patients, they will refer more to you. Likewise, patients see it, then they'll see it and they will ask for physio. So it really increases demand and increases understanding of the profession. One of the other aspects Joe mentioned was that there's not actually much research out there for these areas. And when it is there, you want to share it as widely as possible. And social media is a great way of doing that. We've seen if things go viral, we've seen if things, campaigns, we've seen if things like the Ice Bucket Challenge that starts off really small, 1 or 2 people sharing, and then just spread globally like wildfire through social media. With these articles and things, it can be similar. You want them to spread, you want them to be shared, and you want them to other people to access them and use them and make use and integrate them into practice. So social media can be really powerful for that. We've had a think about the benefits, so I'm just going to take a sip of water and then we'll have a think about getting a bit more practical and using social media to help. So when you're starting off on social media, it can be a bit scary. You don't really know what you're looking at. You're not really sure what you're trying to get out of it, but you've heard it's kind of good. The first thing you need to do is decide what you want to get out of it. Whether you want to develop as yourself, as a professional, through learning, through opportunities like the opening up of networks and conferences, whether you want to help others develop, maybe if you're a lecturer, maybe if you're really passionate about getting students engaged, or even juniors or anyone else at all, or whether you want to raise your personal profile, maybe if you're looking for a job, or maybe if you're trying to keep a record of what you've accomplished using social media. Then social media can be used for all of those, but you have to decide what you want to get from it. That list is not exhaustive. It's just a few of the things that a few people use social media for at the minute. And for many people, it might not just be one thing. There are maybe having one focus, but then actually deciding to branch out into other areas. So if you're using, say, Twitter for your own personal development through accessing resources and articles and having clinical discussions with other colleagues, then actually you're probably raising your personal profile just by effect, because you're having these conversations, you're becoming more well known, you're increasing your networks. So these don't stand alone in separate silos, they all work together. When you've decided what you want to do, you need to make a plan. And at the heart of that plan, you do need to remain professional. This is the kind of standard warning that everyone gives you when you think about social media. Certainly my first year at university, one of the girls was so scared after our professionalism lecture that she actually deleted all of her social media profiles. But we've seen from examples, we've seen from people that you can be professional and use social media, and it works really, really well. The biggest thing you can do is use your common sense. If you imagine that you're maybe walking down a corridor at work, you don't know who's listening, who could say it. It could be your granny, it could be your manager, it could be your best friend. Think about how you'd communicate, what kinds of things you'd say, and why you're saying it. If you're looking for a bit more information on those, quite a few of the professional bodies have guidelines for social media use. Your employer probably will also have guidelines for social media use, so it's important to have a look at those to make sure you're not crossing over them. Whatever you say on social media, although updates get out there instantly, they do stay. You leave behind a digital footprint and people can find that. So if you post something, make sure it's something you're happy for people to still know about you in 20 years' time. When we're thinking now, you've got your plan, you're going to be professional, you've got to find out how are you going to do what you want to do. And that comes down to suiting the purpose. And there's a few things for this. The first is communication style. And as physios, we're brilliant communicators. It's one of our key skills. We're excellent people. And suiting the purpose of your communication just means changing how you are communicating in a way that influences who you want to influence and makes the message hit hard with those who you want it to. The platform and what's being shared on them are also important. So there are lots of different platforms which we'll go through in a minute, and lots of different things that you have the potential of sharing on there. So deciding which platform, you want to think about what message you're trying to get out and who you want to get it out to. In each thing, in each platform, there's different privacy settings, there are different ways of accessing people, and there are different things that you're allowed to share. So it's important to understand these to figure out which one's best to start with. So Facebook's the biggest one, and it's best for crossing global boundaries and time zones because posts tend to be quite static and they stay on your feed for a long time. You'll find a lot of people already use Facebook, so it's a great one to start with if you're just dipping your toe in social media. You've got your own personal account because you'll know how it works, you know which buttons to press. You just have to find out which groups to join to be able to turn it into a more professional account. Facebook can also be great for case studies, and it allows lots of people to come together on one topic and keeps everything organised for you. So if you've got an organised head like that, it can be a great way of collaborating with others without losing bits of the conversation. It's got no word limit. It lets you share images and videos as well. So that's a fab way of sharing resources with other people. In terms of your networks, Facebook's generally people you already connected with. It's people that you sent a friend request to and they've accepted it. So it's people that you tend to know because people don't like adding strangers that much. But you are able to connect and meet new people through groups. It's through common interest groups that physios tend to get together and meet each other virtually through that and collaborate and get all these benefits in those groups rather than their own private walls. In terms of privacy, it can be a tricky one to figure out. If you're looking at using Facebook professionally, I would advise just having a separate professional account because otherwise you end up with different lists and different settings and that can get confusing. And if you're concerned about professionalism especially, then I think it's important to try and keep the two separate. One of the next biggest is Twitter. So Twitter is it's officially called a micro-blogging site, which means it lets you write up to 140 characters, any thought that crosses your mind. This leads to a lot of traffic on Twitter. There's a lot of updates from people you follow, so it's important to follow people that you're interested in. Otherwise, you just get bombarded with a lot of information. Twitter is brilliant in that you can tweet absolutely anyone. A homeless person could tweet a celebrity. I could tweet President of WCPC, Emma Stokes, and they will see it and they will read it and they may well reply if they like what I've tweeted. So this really breaks down the boundaries that do normally exist, and it really opens up the world and actually makes the world a whole lot smaller. In terms of updates, I've said that there is a high volume, they're short, they're snappy. You get the immediate updates through Twitter. You can get news before it's on newspapers, you can get news before it's on the websites. It happens the moment people finish sending that image or that tweet. You can also get images, and they've just started being able to share videos a bit better as well. In terms of people, new connections and old connections are both absolutely brilliant on Twitter. It's easy to make new connections. You just follow someone and they tend to follow you back, and then if they like what you tweet, then you end up talking. And you've got your old connections and you still get their updates, and you can still carry on talking with those and developing that relationship and developing that network even more. The privacy is quite simple on Twitter as well, so that's the benefit. You've either got a locked closed account where people can't see your tweets, or you've got an open account where people can see your tweets. If it's a locked closed account, only people you let see it can see your tweets. If it's an open account, absolutely anyone in the world can see it if they search for it or come across it. So LinkedIn is the next network. It is known as the professional network. I like to think of it as a bit of an online CV, but with a built-in email system. So for me, it's much more about personal profile, professional networking. You can keep a log of achievements, you can put up presentations that you've delivered, you can share your work history or join other groups that might exist on there for clinical discussions. Again, LinkedIn's a bit like Twitter in that you can make and continue connections. People are quite keen to connect on LinkedIn because it's a way of staying in touch without having to put too much work into it. The privacy settings, again, are quite simple in that if people are connected with you, then they can see what you put. Otherwise, it's just a simple page. with your basic details, and that's all they'll see. Unless you choose an open page, in which case everyone can see everything again. So blogs are a bit different now because they do take a bit of time to maintain and a bit of time to write, if you are a writer. But if you're a reader of them, then actually they're quite quick and they're quite good, especially for professional development, and getting a lot of information on one particular topic, say, or sparking some critical thinking. If you write them, they can be brilliant for reflecting, for appraising things, and exploring topics in greater detail than Twitter or Facebook would allow. Blogs are also longer lasting, so they will stay on the blog for as long as you let them. People can find them quite easily, and that makes better if you've got something that you want quite a lot of people to see and something's going to be relevant over quite a long period of time. There's less direct interaction though, that you don't have the same conversations you get with Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, because people are reading it and they might not want to comment. It might actually have a lot of impact in someone's practice, but you might not hear about it if they don't choose to engage and respond back to you. Again, the privacy settings are really, really simple. If you write the blog and you put it up, anyone can search for it and anyone can find it. In terms of blogging, there's the two biggest blog apps are WordPress and Blogspot, but there are others out there. WordPress is really easy and quite simple if you're setting up a blog, so it would be the one that I would recommend. But equally, they're all just as easy to read as any other, so the platform doesn't have that much effect on who's reading it. But Pinterest is quite a new one compared to the few we've covered so far. Pinterest initially started as, often described as an online pin board, a notice board that you can pin things to. So lots of people use it for pictures, as it's a very visual resource, and it's brilliant for collating information, collaborating information and bringing it together. So you can organise your board so you have a different pin board for different topics, and any resources you find relating to each topic you can put in their relevant area. With Pinterest, more and more it's being used in healthcare. I think it was initially quite slow to take it up, but there have been some brilliant examples, particularly from the We Nurses community, about how we can showcase these resources in a way that makes them accessible using Pinterest and engage people really well with it. It does look quite nice, and I think that's why a lot of people like it, especially if you're quite a visual learner, and it makes it easy to get these resources in one easy to share place. As it is quite resource based, you don't actually have many of the conversations. You do tend to connect with people and you might find you like the resources that they're having, but you don't generally talk to people one-to-one or as a group on these topics. The privacy settings can be a bit confusing. Again, you've got different types of boards. You can have private or public boards, and then you've also got people that can follow you, so it can be a bit more complicated to wrap your head around privacy on that. But equally, it's probably something that you would use professionally, so it might not be as much as a concern. YouTube's slightly older than Pinterest, and we all know it. Many people don't think of it as social media, but actually it is another type of social media. It's predominantly videos, so it can be great for education, for sharing opinions or reflections. Anyone that makes a video can watch videos as well, so it can access literally anyone in the world that's got the ability to access the internet, which is why you can see these videos with millions, tens of millions of views, and they've had such an impact on people. Like Pinterest, again, it's very content focused. It's about the video. It's not about the interaction with the person. So you can find it's not as social as some of the other networks, and you don't get all the benefits you would. And the privacy settings, again, it depends on the video that you can set them at. So it's worth exploring that and deciding what you want to get from it and who you want to share it with, whether you want it open and everyone able to see it, or whether you just want a few people to see it. Snapchat might not have been heard by all of them. It's an instant messaging app for phones, which allows you to send a picture to who you choose to send it to. The idea is it's a short picture, it lasts for 3 to 8 seconds and then it disappears. So it's brilliant for quick updates, maybe a reminder to join in or enhance some of the other social networks that you're doing. It could be great for sharing images. I used to use it quite a lot with a student friend of mine when we were studying for exams to help with education. We'd send each other quick messages with small facts that people would remember easily from it. Can also be used to raise profile and show what you're doing and share what you're doing and get others engaged in what you're doing, because it makes people curious when they've got such a small snapshot into what you are doing. It can only be done by people you can only send them to the people that you've already connected with, either by their usernames or through their phone numbers. So it's quite a closed network, but people can take photos of the images you send and they can share them wider than that once they've got the photo. WhatsApp is the last one I'll talk about in terms of networks. It's best for immediate discussion. It's like an instant messenger. So it could be great for education and for clinical discussion, but with your current connections, you need their phone number to be able to talk to them, or you need to be added to the same group to be able to talk to them. So it could be brilliant if you've got quite a few videos in one group and you want to discuss something, maybe a case study, maybe a research article, and you can all come together on WhatsApp. The conversation stays there so people can review it or go back to it if they miss parts, and everyone can get involved all at once. But it could be quite a nice one for these immediate conversations that you want a particular group of people to be involved with, rather than having it as open discussions like you would on Twitter. So with each of these networks, you'll also be wanting to think about what role you take on. So whether you're sharing information or reflecting, teaching others, curating information, or appraising articles, working together in conversations to build something new. Everything you do on social media will have an impact and will affect how you learn. So what you do on it is down to you and what you want to get out of it based on that individual plan. I like to think sometimes about social media being a bit like a bus. So at the start, you get on the bus and you sit down and you can hear different conversations happening around you. You think some of them sound interesting, some of them don't really, so you don't really want to engage with the ones that aren't interesting. Maybe you put your headphones in and ignore it. And you can choose to ignore it, in which case you miss out on the interesting conversations. If you sit and listen to the interesting conversations, so you might learn something, you might pick up something. One day you might have the courage to join in the conversation, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter or any other network. You might want to share what you heard or share something that you could add to that conversation, like a resource, and engage with people that are having that conversation. So your role on social media doesn't stay the same. You might start listening, you might start lurking and collecting information and appraising information, but as you feel more comfortable and confident on Twitter, you might end up being the ones that are sharing it initially. You want people that are engaging other people on social media. So I know I've mentioned it before, but social media can be a bit nerve-wracking in the first few times on there. I remember I was actually physically shaking as I sent my first ever professional tweet. After sending it to a qualified physio, I didn't know what they'd think of me, didn't know how they'd reply. They were really, really nice. Lots of people do get put off social media because it can be a bit nerve-wracking and it can be a bit scary because it's something new. But actually, you're missing out on all of the benefits that social media's got to offer by not engaging just because your nerves are stopping you. It's only through doing it that your comfort zone will expand and you'll feel much more confident accessing these social networks, accessing the people that you've got on these social networks and engaging with them. And at the end of the day, it might make you nervous, but when you think about the benefits it's got, particularly for your patients, then it can be quite easy to overcome those nerves. So give yourself time on Twitter. I talked about the bus and the kind of steps of moving from lurking or ignoring the conversation into guiding or leading the conversations. It does take time. you won't immediately log in and see something you like on any network. You need time to explore, you need time to find out what you like and what your individual interests are. And from that, you'll be able to figure out who to follow, who not to follow, who's annoying on these networks. Asking for help is also important. So logging into these networks, technically, knowing which buttons to press can be a bit confusing. I don't claim to know everything about every network, and I don't think anyone does know everything about every network, but people have their favourite networks. They spend different lengths of time exploring them, and they will be able to understand them probably better, be able to show you what to do. A colleague of mine said, get a buddy, so someone that can show you when you're struggling and help you to engage in these networks. And having that buddy as well also means you've got that person to talk to. You've also got someone to kind of guide you on social media a little bit, so that it can also help with these nerves that you're getting. They'll also probably be able to offer you some suggestions of who to follow, how to get started, and where, even offer you feedback on how you are using social media and how you can improve, how you can get more out of it. So it's really useful having someone that you can ask for help. So we've heard us think about the practicalities. I'd like to think a little bit now about making the most of social media. And actually, how do we have the biggest impact we can have possible, whether that's on ourselves or on our services. So I mentioned it before, that social media skills are effectively people skills. It's the people and the conversations that drive the content and drive the impact it has on everyday life. It's just knowing which buttons to click. So if you are struggling, always go back to the communication front. Some people get worried about pressing the wrong thing and sending a message off into space or something like that. But if you've got right people skills and you're sending a nice professional message, then it doesn't matter where that message goes. If you've got those people skills, you're going to engage people better. You're going to have more fruitful conversations. You're going to find that people want to engage with you more because they know that you are someone who would engage and communicate well with them and offer them something that actually other people on social networks might not be able to offer because they don't have such good people skills. So this is a quote here. I can't tell you where it's from because I don't know, but it's been quite widely shared on the internet. And I think it is really nice in that when you're thinking about social media, no matter what you share, you've got people following and reading your posts, and that's your audience. And we are engaging them in what we post. We are giving them something and giving them something to think about, something to reply to, something to reflect upon. And if it hits the nail on the head for them, they're going to engage with it really well. They're going to start conversations about it. They're going to take it offline and back into practice. And that spreads really well. In terms of enthusiasm as well, if you're engaged and enthusiastic and passionate about what you're doing, like you are about your specialism and I am about physiotherapy as a whole, then you're able to spread these resources and these messages and this impact across the globe through social media, simply through that passion and enthusiasm. So when it's taken offline, we can think a bit more about actually how does it have benefits. If it's all online and you leave it online, actually what benefit is it having for you? Is it helping you develop if you're not actually putting it into practice? Is it having any impact on your patients and your service users? Is it making anything better where you are? Because if it's not making things better for you in any way, then why are you going to keep using it? When you've got something from social media, whether you've learned something from an article or whether you've had a really good clinical discussion and want to try some technique that's been mentioned with your own patients, just keep a record of it, because that way you can track the benefits that it's had, you can test things out, you can try things out, and you can actually see what changes in your practice and prove that social media is a brilliant tool for development. So I would also suggest being easy to find. If you search for Helen Owen on Twitter, there are over 400 results. If you search for Helen Louise Owen, my full name, there's 3 of us. So what you might find is that adding the word physio to your name, to your network name, can be a nice way of engaging people and making yourself easy to find, so that more people are able to follow you, more people know what you're about, and especially if you're looking at kind of raising your own personal profile, it means you don't get confused with anyone else. I would say show off a little as well. In England, at least, we tend to be very, very modest about what we do, but you're all experts in your own field, and you're able to offer something to the world of social media that wouldn't otherwise be there. And you need to figure out what that is and what you can offer, and then share it, flaunt it a bit. Don't be arrogant, but be happy to share. Show what you know, so people want to engage with you, so that they know that you've got something on offer. And that's how some of those conversations start. It's, on social media, it's very much a mutual respect that nobody knows everything. Everyone's going to know something more about a topic that other people know less about. And it's that exchange of knowledge and ideas that really helps people develop. So my final top tips would be to talk the talk and walk the walk. Whatever you do on social media, make sure you follow through on. Take it offline. If you act away on social media, also act like that in real life. You might find that you meet some of your contacts online in real life at conferences, say, and if they're completely different to what they're like on social media, it might actually leave you doubting what they're like generally, and how reliable and trustworthy the resources and the conversations you're having are. I'd also say be yourself as part of that. Being yourself is a whole lot easier than trying to be anyone else. It's the only person you can be. And it means that you can make the most out of social media for you and get what you want to get out of it to help your own practice and your own patients. Follow what you're interested in as well. We've each got different areas of professional interest, and we've each got different things that appeal to us. If you're not interested in something, then unfollow it, unfriend them. It's not interesting, you're not going to engage with it. You might just get fed up of seeing it all, and then get fed up of social media as a whole and lose the benefits that actually could give you. This one's really important. Social media gives you a voice, but that doesn't mean you have to talk all the time. Social media is not just about transmitting information, but it's also about receiving information and listening to other people, listening to their ideas, listening to anything that they've shared and thinking about it, processing it, and then responding if you need to respond, if you want to respond, or if you've got something to add. It's very familiar, the whole idea of active listening in practice, and it's a bit like that online as well. You're not just seeing these posts, you're wanting to engage and you're wanting to learn from them. So just make sure you take time to do that. But also say think outside the box. So if you're struggling to engage with one thing, try something else. Try something a little bit different, ask for help. Maybe if you want to connect with someone and you think, oh, they'll never connect with me, just give it a go. You never know what might happen on social media. So I've got some suggestions here of people you can follow. I've done them for Twitter and Facebook because they are the largest two networks, really large, with the most videos on them at the minute. WeHPs is the group that I run, so for allied health professionals. It's largely for people in England, but we would welcome anyone and everyone to follow us and get involved with us. And that's we run monthly Twitter chats for professional development and discussions, and we share resources and we help people network and group together. Physio Talk is purely for physios, so it's a really global community of physiotherapists that come together for fortnightly Twitter chats, and they share specific physiotherapy resources, articles and the like. And again, that's a brilliant network to get involved with. There's the HELLOMYNAMEIS network. So for this network, and although I wasn't very familiar until I was talking with Brown about it, it's actually got some really interesting things on there. I've learned so much about the speciality, going from knowing basically nothing to knowing a little bit more than nothing just through that Twitter feed, so it's been really good. There's also the WCPT network as a whole, so sharing actually the updates in physiotherapy at the minute on a global scale. and sharing resources again as well, and news from different parts of the world and different specialities of physiotherapy. There is a local physio known as Claire Lay Physio, who's a researcher at Warwick. Her feed is brilliant for oncology related things, and she shares a lot of updates, and she is just a really interesting person to follow and engage with and talk with. For those of you in England and those of you that are abroad and might be interested as well, there's the Association of Chartered Physiotherapy in Oncology and Palliative Care. So that's a subset of the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, the physio network in the UK. And again, they've got quite a few resources and lots of interesting information about the different things that they encounter. There's also Emma Stokes, so Emma's brilliant. She is president of WCPT. She shares lots of resources. She's very topical in terms of healthcare networking, context of healthcare and cultures of healthcare. And actually, she is just a brilliant example of how you can engage with anyone on social media. She will talk with anyone and everyone if they've got a good and valid point. And she sets a very good example for the rest of people engaging in physiotherapy, social media. So she's also on Facebook as well. Also on Facebook, you've got the Allied Health Professionals for Public Health group. So that's a relatively new setup group, but it's got lots of resources relating to public health, which is a priority in England at the minute, and I'm sure a priority in many other countries as they're looking at prevention as a cure for healthcare, and does relate to quite a lot of the conditions that you guys might see with HIV and cancers. So there's also the Physiotherapy Oncology Rehab group, which you can search for. You can search for any of these in the top left-hand corner on the search bar on Facebook, and join them. And they've got some clinical discussions, and it's a good place to network and meet other physios that are engaged in this area. There's also the Cancer Physio. So again, that's Claire Lay, who I mentioned earlier on Twitter, and she's got a Facebook page as well. So just to finish, coming into land, I'd like to try and bust a few myths that exist about social media. Quite often when I talk to people about using networks like this, they come up with some excuses. And I've told you the benefits, but I'd just like to get these kind of barriers and reasons not to engage with social media out of the way. So for many people, they say it's too complicated. I would say take your time. Social media can be complicated. It's learning a new skill. It's digital literacy. It's knowing which buttons to press. Get a buddy, they can help you. They can show you what to press and ask questions. At the heart of it, I've already said it's about people, and the buttons are secondary, but they do help. So you're able to actually share things and make the most of it. People are very welcoming of you asking questions on social media, especially if you're new. They love to help new people and get them as involved as possible. Lots of people say you don't have the time for social media. Now, social media is a brilliant form of professional development, and it can save you time in the long run. Rather than having to spend hours searching for articles or trying to find someone that knows about this specific condition, you can just ask on social media and someone will be able to help you. There's such a wide knowledge base there that someone can help you, and it will generally be quicker. Of course, have a look for yourself as well. If you're struggling, then this could be really helpful. Focus your time as well. As part of your plan, you'll know what you want to get out of social media, so spend your time trying to work on that. It can be easy to get distracted, especially on things like Twitter, where you've got reminders, say, of celebrities doing silly things, and you can get distracted and want to look at them. If you remind yourself of your plan and what you're trying to achieve with it, then you can stay a bit more focused and not get sidetracked by it. Lots of people think that social media is all well and good, the people that use it, but actually it won't really help them. I would challenge any clinician or researcher or educator to use social media and not get any benefit from it. Again, asking for help. If you're struggling to see the benefit, then ask for help. See if someone can help you find out why you're not getting much out of it. See if there's anyone that could point out an easier way of getting engaged in social media or having these conversations that help you develop. Remember that it's ultimately about the patient. If it's not helping you, it won't be helping the patient. So do make the most of it. And remember that what you get from social media can be taken all the way through healthcare and right into delivery of services. So I'd like to finish with a quote by Helen Bevan that was shared by the girls from WeHPs, and it's just brilliant about how social media completely overcomes the barriers that we do face as clinicians, and especially you guys as such a specialist subset of physiotherapy. And it's just a really gentle reminder that our patients and our systems are what's at the heart of it, and that's what unites everyone and what causes everyone to be so passionate and engaged on social media. So we'll stop there. Has anyone got any questions? Is anyone able to hear Phil? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, sorry, could you repeat that? Hi, Jackie.
Can hear me good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Vanessa, did you want to talk? I just wanted to say hello. So much fun. So I teach online. I don't use a lot of social media, and some of the comments that you were making, meeting people from around the globe and problem solving with them, sharing what you know, and then having them share with you. I find that's true, and it's just so joyful to learn these new things.
I'm really glad to hear that, Jackie. That's nice feedback.
The question that I have is, Darren and I are exploring trying to set up sites for our HIV/AIDS and for our palliative care and oncology. When you started your website, how often did you get together and meet, and how often per year is it helpful to get together and like review an article or have a problem or a case study to solve?
So in terms of online, you can meet as little as often as you want to, really. In terms of taking it offline, for the WeHPs network, we didn't actually meet until about 3 or 4 months after it formed in person. You don't need it that much if you're still in communication with each other and using social media to keep in touch and plan.
Thank you. And so if you're using the regular Twitter and Facebook accounts and listserv, then how do you meet online? Do you have a different type of method for immediate interactions or sharing things like?
Yeah. So the most basic part is just on Twitter is following people. So if you follow someone, you get their updates on your feed. For things like Twitter chats, you can use things like hashtags. So hashtags organise the information into one space and let people follow the communications through. So if everyone uses the same hashtag, you'll all get the same updates, no matter who you follow, so you can follow the whole conversation.
Information. I'm a little new to this. Darren actually set up my first Twitter account at the last World Congress.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to use it. You mentioned too about blocking people that you don't want to hear from. Is there ways you can block certain Twitter things? Because I get all these celebrities sending me things, political candidates, and I'm really not interested in a lot of the things they have to say. So is there a way to block them?
Yeah, so you only get the updates from the people that you follow. So the easiest way is to unfollow them. The exception to that is where people you still follow will share their tweets, so they retweet them. And you can either just ignore them, or you can unfollow that person if they're creating a lot of noise in the channel and actually struggling to concentrate on the other things that have been posted because of it.
Does anyone else have any questions? If you are having trouble with your microphone, you can type things into the chat line. So if you go to the top, you can type things in. And Helen, if you look in the chat line, there are a couple of comments.
I've got the ones from Nina. Oh, you're very welcome, Nina. Thank you.
So if you'd like to type something into the chat line, if you're struggling with your mic, you can ask a question. Waiting for something to come up on the chat line. I just wanted to let you know, Helen, that Nina Chigbo is our educational director, and she's from Nigeria. And
Oh, well.
yeah, she will be sending you an International Scholar Award, which is an award that we give to people that are invited to present on our web line. And so you should be getting that in the next couple of days. And we want to thank you for this presentation. I'm sorry it started off with a little bit of issues with the technology, but it will be it is being recorded. We will post it to our website, and then other people who were not able to make it or that are in other time zones can then watch the conversation. And I'm going to encourage people to watch this because I think it's one of the best ways for people to connect internationally. Any other comments?
Thank you for what you said. That's really kind of you. Yeah, I mean, webinars are another type of social media, so it's really befitting to be able to share it in that way, and hopefully it will make a bit of an impact. I would say if anyone does think of any questions, then do feel free to email me or tweet me or any other thing you can think of. Just get in touch, and I'll be happy to help.
Appreciate your offer. You might be getting a few emails from me. I said it's so nice to be able to communicate with other people from other countries, as you talked about, because you learn what it is you don't know in your country. You also learn some of the problems that they're facing and have to problem solve to get through. And regardless of what level of care you're working with in terms of insurance or healthcare support, you still learn about how people problem solve, even in simpler situations that lend themselves to patient care.
Yeah, absolutely. We hosted a Twitter chat a couple of months ago about working in kind of as international allied health professions, and how do you work in kind of these areas with really low resource. And it was incredible the kind of innovative ways they have to work in a completely different system and still get really good patient outcomes.
You did comment about using social media with your patients. Have you grown that or changed anything with dealing with your patients?
So I guess it depends how you use it. Some people do find that their patients might ask them particular questions. I think that's a tricky thing because you don't want to be treating them by social media, and you don't want to be crossing that patient-professional boundary. but certainly I had a young girl with cystic fibrosis, and cystic fibrosis can be tricky in that the children can't go near any other people with the same condition. So actually they get a lot of their peer support from social networks. And we found out we both followed the Cystic Fibrosis Trust on Twitter, and that actually helped build that therapist-patient relationship even more and improve her engagement. So it could be things like that, or sharing resources you found with your patients, just saying, oh, I saw this tweet. And it just makes you human as well.
To share something, I teach a lot of courses online to physical therapists. We have an oncology certificate program that's an international offering, and so the online coursework, like you mentioned, sometimes there's issues with time, but you can do some recordings, or I've given my students my telephone number so they can text me at any time, and I enjoy working with them with some of that technology, because not only do they get a hold of me by email, but we do these WebEx kind of course learning issues, so I'll be able to put my PowerPoint up, or if they have an assignment, I'll have them film themselves and put it to a private YouTube site, and I can actually go in and grade them, performing some type of an evaluation, or taking, or even doing exercise tests with patients.
Yeah. So that's a really good example of integrating social media into education and making the most of it, and it's more engaging than the traditional slideshows and lectures.
Starting to use it with teaching, but I think I'm going to learn a lot more once I get going with the help of your presentation today. And who knows, maybe I'll apply some of the educational things with Twitter and whatever.
Yeah, brilliant.
Does anyone have any other questions, Vanessa? Again, if people watch this as a recording, they can get hold of Helen if they have questions.
Yeah.
The World Congress. And if there are no further questions or comments, then I'm going to, end the session. And thank you again, Helen. I applaud the work that you're doing, and your pioneering spirit and your initiative to get these off the ground. And I think it's going to make a big difference for our website, particularly for people who like to
Thank you.
using it. So again, thank you very much, Helen, for coming and presenting today, and this will be on the website.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.